Alright, I'm going to show you some basic configurations here in Packet Tracer. Packet Tracer is a great way to practice your router configurations. It has the same exact commands that you would use on an actual router. You can pull up any router that you want. I'm just going to choose the first one in 1841. If you click on it, what we want to mainly work with is the CLI. You can see the back here. You can see your ports that you have. You can turn it on and off. You can add different cards. Keep in mind that whenever you pull up a router onto the layout, it doesn't have any serial ports, so no WAN connections are in there. If you want to add a WAN connection, simply turn it off, drag and drop one of these WIC 2T cards, and now you'll have two serial ports. And you can go ahead and you can turn it back on. Going to the CLI, which stands for the command line interface, this is where we're going to do all of our commands. The system configuration dialog, this is that setup mode. If you hit yes, it's going to ask you a series of questions. What do you want the host name to be, IP addresses, things like that. We're never going to use this, but if you want to take a look and see what setup mode is all about, go ahead and hit yes. Where we're at right now is called user exec mode. You can't do a whole lot in user exec mode except for a few show commands. If you're ever wondering what commands are available, you can hit your question mark. So in user exec mode, we can tell we're in user exec mode because of the prompt with the greater than symbol. We have these commands available to us: connect, disconnect, enable, exit, logout, ping, resume, show, telnet, traceroute. Like I said, that question mark is an excellent thing to use when you're not quite sure what commands are available, or if you're not sure on how to finish out a command. Let's say you want to do a trace route, but you're not sure exactly how it was spelled or what the exact command was, but you knew it started with trace. What you could do is type in trace and then hit your question mark, and it will tell you everything that starts with that TRACE. So again, if you're not quite sure, that question mark is a great tool to use. If I type in enable, this will take me to privileged mode. And we can tell that because it has the pound symbol, router pound. One thing to note in the Cisco IOS is you can shorten pretty much every single command. I'm just going to exit out of this mode. If I want to go into privileged mode, normally I type enable, but I can shorten it by just typing EN. Takes me to that privileged mode. Again, privileged mode with the pound sign. In here there's a lot more commands that you can do. I hit my question mark, it shows me a page of commands. If I want to just go one more command, I can hit my enter key. If I want a whole other page of commands, I hit my space bar. Mainly what you're going to do here in privileged mode is you're going to do some show commands. I'm going to do a show space question mark, so I can show my clock, show controllers, show my running configuration, so show sessions, show my IP route, show the routing tables. Basically, that's what you're going to use your privileged mode for most of the time, is to show things. The last mode that's available is called global configuration. And to get into this, you type in configure terminal. What I like to type in for short is just config T. A lot shorter than typing in configure terminal. This is where we're going to make configurations to our interfaces, set up banner messages of the day, passwords, things like that. Most of the configurations that you're going to make that are actually going to affect the router are going to be in this global configuration. For example, let's set up a password. First password that we're going to set up is the line console 0 password. And what this is, if you remember what the console port is, this is where you'd plug in your rollover cable to set up the router. So we're going to set up the very first password to get into a router. If you type in line console 0, and now your router prompt should change to config-line, so we know we are in that line. Here we type in password Cisco, so we're going to set up the password to Cisco. We hit enter, and we want that password when we log in. Now that password is set up. To show you what this password does, go ahead and type in end, and then type in exit. Right now we can tell that we're on the console 0, so we just set up that password for it. So when we hit return to get started, it asks me for a password now, and that's going to be the password that we just set up for our line console 0. So that's Cisco. You can go ahead and type that, and when you type in passwords, nothing's going to show up in the command prompt. So I typed in Cisco, I hit enter. Now I'm in user exec mode. Let's get into enable mode. Notice that right now, then, to get into enable mode or to privilege mode, I sometimes call them the same thing, enable mode and privilege mode, there is no password. We really want to set up a password to be able to get into the enable mode, because this is one of the places you need to go to first before you can make any type of changes on the router. So if we can block people from getting into enable mode, we can block them from getting into global configuration and changing things on our router. So one way we can do this is if we get into our config T mode, global configuration, I can type in enable password Cisco. And this will set up the password for enable mode to Cisco. Once you go ahead and type in end, and if you do a show run, this shows our running configuration. If you remember from the reading or from the video, after our router loads up the configuration file from NVRAM, it dumps it into RAM. Any changes that we make are going to be stored in RAM until we save them to the NVRAM. So when we do a show run, we're looking at what's inside of RAM. And inside of here we can see what we put in for the host name. We haven't changed that yet. But I can see my enable password in plain text. Well, if someone can do a show command on your router, they can see exactly what your password is. Again, enter will go one line at a time, or spacebar will go one page at a time. No passwords for my fast Ethernet right now. No passwords for any of my serials. For my line console 0, I can see my password of Cisco. Line VTY, this is for Telnet. That doesn't have a password yet. And that's all I have for my show run. I'm going to go back into config T. And one thing that I can do here, for my enable password, I can do an enable secret. And I'm going to set my secret password as class. Now if I take a look at my show run, my secret password is encrypted. So it's better to set up a secret password for that enable mode instead of just the regular password. So let's take a look at these passwords again and how they work. So I hit enter. This is my line console 0 password it's asking for, and we set that up to Cisco. When I type in enable to get into privilege mode, this is either going to be my enable password, which I set up to Cisco, or it's going to be the encrypted one, my secret one, which I set up to class. If you set up an encrypted one, a secret password, that is the one that you have to enter. That one takes precedence. So I would have to then type in class. Okay. I'm going to go back into config T, and I'm going to set up what's called a banner message of the day. And that's banner MOTD. With this, I need to start with a character. I'm going to use the %, type in my message, I need to end my message with that same exact command or same exact character. What this is doing, this is just letting the router know what you want to be your message and what you don't. I'm going to hit enter. I could use anything for that character. I could use an A, I could use a $. It's just this is the start of my message, this is the end of the message. And what this banner of the message day does, I'm going to exit all the way out again. When I hit enter, there's my banner message of the day. Unauthorized users prohibited. This is a good way to let network administrators know what's going on. Maybe you're going to take the network down at 3 o'clock that day, so you might want to put a banner in there letting everybody know who's going to access the router to make changes that, hey, the network's going to be down at 3 o'clock, just to let you know. Log back in here. Go back into config T, which is a global configuration. The last thing I'm going to show you how to configure is an interface. We're going to configure the fast Ethernet 0/0 interface. Again, the commands that I've shown you up to this point are just some basic types of commands. I really encourage you to go through the labs and use these commands, because it's one of those things where the more you use it, the more comfortable you are going to be with it. To configure an interface, you have to be in global configuration, and I can tell I'm in that because I went and typed in config T, and my prompt looks like this. I can config my router. I want to configure my interface fast Ethernet 0/0. One way I can shorten that is I could just type in int fa 0/0 if I wanted. Hit enter. I can tell I'm in that interface because it says config-if. What you need to do to configure it is give it an IP address. So you type in IP address, what do you want the address to be, and subnet mask. The last thing you need to do to configure any interface is turn it on. Well, by default, all interfaces are in what's called the shutdown mode. They're shut down, they're not turned on. So anytime that you want to do the opposite of something in Cisco, you type in no in front of it. So we're going to take it from the shutdown mode and turn it on, so we type in no shutdown. And we can see that the link changed to up. Let's say I wanted to take out this IP address. Well, we just do the opposite. So we type in no IP address and what we typed in. So whenever you want to get rid of a command, you type in no in front of it. Or if you want to turn something on, you do a no shutdown. Show you a few more show commands that you'll probably use on a regular basis. Show IP interface brief shows you all of your interfaces that you have on this router, and it will show you whether they're up or they're down and what the IP address is. If I do a show interface, this will give me a more long listing about the interfaces, some more information than just IP addresses and whether they're up or down. So a couple different places you can go to check to see if your interfaces are up. Show run again will show you your running configuration. This is the commands that I've typed in to make changes, and this is stored in RAM. Note that we haven't saved this yet. If I want to save this, so when I reboot the router, this information is still going to be in here. I do a copy, run, start. And what that does is it's going to copy my running configuration to my startup configuration. And remember what startup configuration is? Your NVRAM. So when we copy it over to that NVRAM, when we shut down that router, we're not going to lose it. So I go ahead and hit enter. It's saved now. So if I reloaded this router, reloaded it, basically just rebooting it, that information is still going to be in there because I did copy it over to my startup configuration. Hopefully that gives you a little idea of what the command line looks like, some basic commands that you can do. Again, please go through the packet tracer labs and do some of this stuff because it's just going to become a lot more easy for semesters 2, 3, and 4 when you're really going to be using this command line a lot. Thanks.